Will the keeper of the flame please bring forward the Christ candle? Namaste.
Good morning, beloved of God. Right where you are at this moment, the light of Spirit shines through you. Infinitely loved by God, you are the light of the world. I'm Sandy, and I welcome you to Unity Spiritual Center of Waco this morning. And if we could take an opportunity to check our cell phones, that would be great. And please stand as you are able and join in our congregational singing.
Thought that changes things that shape my life. I am the thinker who thinks the thought. I have the power to change my life. I am the thinker who thinks the thought that changes things that shape my life. I am the thinker who thinks the thought. I have the power to change my life. If you ask me who am I am wisdom, I am light, I am more than meets the eye, I cannot be defined. I am the thinker who thinks the thought that changes things that shape my life. I am the thinker who thinks the thought, I have the power to change my life. I am the thinker who thinks the thought that changes things that shape my life. I am the thinker who thinks the thought. I have the power to change my life. If you ask me what am I am beauty, I am joy, I am more than meets the eye, I cannot be defined. That changes things that shape my life. I am the thinker who thinks the thought. I have the power to change my life. I am the thinker who thinks the thought that changes things that shape my life. I am the thinker who thinks the thought. I have the power to change my life. Instrumental. Clarinet, just something I got going on. There we go. And I can choose to be the light that brightens someone's darkest night. I'm so much more than meets the eye. I cannot be defined. That changes things that shape my life. I am the thinker who thinks the thought. I have the power to change my life. I am the thinker who thinks the thought that changes things that shape my life. I am the thinker who thinks the thought. I have the power to change my life. I have the power to change my life. I have the power to change my life. Woo!
Thank you, Lucinda. That was rousing. Let us say together now our statement of truth, which is on the screen. There is only one presence and one power in the universe and in my life, God the good, omnipotent. We are a beacon of love and light for those who need this spiritual home right now. And let us say together our vision, mission, and core value for today. Our vision, to awaken an awareness of spirit in our lives through modern application of ancient wisdom. And our mission, raise consciousness, transform lives, Heal the planet one person at a time, beginning with me. And our core value for today is prayer and meditation. We acknowledge the power of prayer and meditation to inspire, transform, and to heal. Through affirmative prayer, we change our lives. Through meditation, we open ourselves to insight, intuition, and conscious awareness of spirit within. And I believe Penny will be doing our daily word.
The daily word for June 5th today is truth. Like a kaleidoscope's shifting pattern of dazzling colors, my life is always changing. Some of the changes I may like and others I may not, but I accept the changes nonetheless. I enjoy pleasurable moments while learning and growing through the unpleasant ones. No matter where I find myself along the spectrum of human experience, I take comfort in spiritual truth. God is changeless, my rock and refuge in times of struggle, and the wings that lift me in times of ease and bliss. I remain steady and calm, even as I navigate life's inevitable changes, finding lasting comfort in the truth of God as absolute goodness. As I travel along my unique path, the steady light of truth shines from within. And from 1 John chapter 2, verse 8, "Yet I am writing you a new commandment that is true in him and in you, because the darkness is passing away and the true light is already shining." And our affirmation for today, which I'll say, and then guess what? We're going to say it together. The light of truth shines in my heart. The light of truth shines in my heart.
Thank you, Penny and Lucinda. And this is the time when we have an opportunity to get up and to greet one another with a handshake or a hug. If you don't want a hug, stick a hand out, okay? So anyway, let's do that now and greet one another. And
Good morning, Al. Hey, good morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
Hey, Bubby.
Good morning to you.
Good morning out there. Butterfly. Can you say hi to the camera? Hi.
To the camera.
Say hi to me.
I love that color.
Good morning.
I know, you look gorgeous. You are meant for red. Red. Hey there. Good morning. Looks like you got your hands full.
Just a little bit.
How you doing, Kev? Good. Doesn't take long to go through the crowd. Good morning to all of you out there who are watching us on live stream. We love you, we bless you, and we behold the Christ in you. It's good to see you.
Oh, I just don't know.
You got your name on
calm. I'm going to have to come out there because I don't know the words maybe, and I'm going to need to look on the screen too.
Yeah, we probably have heard this a couple of times before, we've just never sung it as a congregational. I've got a video for it and all that kind of great stuff, but it's an easy song to learn and it's beautiful. So I'm really excited to be doing it for congregation.
Okay.
May you rejoice in the new life within you as you release the old and worn. Open your heart with praise and thanksgiving. May you see God. May you awake to a world of beauty, lifted up from times of tears, aware of the grace that tenderly carries you. May you see God. May you feel God. Now this part's a little tricky. Here we go. Was there a time in your life you might have been something unseen? Now you can believe it's real. And then back to what we had before. Oh wait, sorry, instrumental. But then we go back to what we had. May you look back on a life sweet with memories, understanding all was right, and in the whisper of your last breath, may you see God. May you feel God. Slower. May you know God. Good job, you guys. Love you so much. Real good.
Thank you, Lucinda. It was great. I'm glad we did that song. And a good morning to all of you out there and those of you joining us on live stream. We so appreciate your being with us. I'm Reverend Margo Ford, and as I said, it's a pleasure to welcome each of you to Unity Spiritual Center today. Together we affirm and celebrate our unity, our oneness with each other, our oneness with all that is, and our oneness in God. Your presence is essential, for each of us is a unique aspect of the energy that expresses as Unity Spiritual Center of Waco, right here and right now. We know that no one is here by accident or coincidence. As we remind you each week, Unity is a New Thought denomination, yet New Thought is nothing new to the world. It is in reality a synthesis of the greatest concepts from the minds and spirits of humankind across the ages. The laws of Moses, the love of Christ, the ethics of Buddha, the morals of Confucius, the 5 pillars of Islam, and the deep spiritual realization of the Hindus. All find an exalted place in the philosophy of unity. In unity, we believe that all people are created with sacred worth, regardless of culture, ethnicity, sexual orientation, or creed. And we know that neither God nor unity leave anyone out. So let us join together now in prayer. Eternal presence, divine spirit, as we come together this morning, we do so in a spirit of joy, of gratitude, of love. That joy and gratitude, love expand from us out into our community, into the world, so that there may be peace everywhere. As we came here this morning, we could not help but notice that summer is upon us, even though it is not official yet. The days are warm, the nights are coolish, the birds are singing and bringing forth their young. And as we look at all of those wonders, we recognize that each is an expression of God's divine life and love. How grateful we are to have that understanding that God expresses in and through and all that is. We hold in our hearts all people who have asked for prayer. And we most especially hold in our hearts people who have been affected in any way by violence, by war. We see them surrounded in your love and your holy light, bringing peace and cooperation to our planet. We know that your wish for us, your desire for us is always our highest good for all people everywhere. So we see the right and perfect solution to every situation unfolding right here, right now, and we are grateful. We remember that it is written that when the apostles said, "Lord, how shall we pray?" that Jesus said to them, "Pray like this." And together we say the Lord's Prayer, which is on the screen, translated from the Aramaic, the language that Jesus and his disciples spoke. Infinite presence, which is everywhere. Your name is sacred. Your kingdom is come. Your will is throughout the earth, even as it is throughout the universe. You give us our needful bread from day to day, and you forgive our offenses, even as we forgive our offenders. You let us not enter into materialism, but you separate us from error, because yours are the kingdom, the power, the song, and the praise, from all ages, throughout all ages, sealed in faith, trust, and truth. Each of us is the light and love of God, spiritual beings having a human experience. You are God's beloved, and we embrace you today. Now, I'm aware that we have a couple of children with us this morning, and I don't know if they want to come up in front and get blessed. Oh, tell me this young man's name again. Yeah, I have only one hearing aid in, so I'll ask him myself, okay? Okay. And tell me your name again.
Tate.
Tate? All right. All right, Tate, we're going to turn you around so that you can face all of these people who are going to rub their hands together with nice warm energy, and we're going to hold them up to you and to Colt and to and all of the children of the world, and saying, "Children, we love you, we bless you, and we appreciate you just the way you are." Okay, you can go sit down now. Thank you. What a cutie.
Okay, so this this is a song that is a perennial favorite of mine, and I used to sing it so much that I was afraid y'all were getting sick of it, but we're doing it anyway, so some of y'all haven't heard it. used to think I had to have my own way, could do everything on my own, living my life like a one-woman play, feeling confused and alone. Still I held on tight to the life that I knew, till it wasn't the life I remembered. Finally admitted I hadn't a clue, opened my heart in surrender. And I made room for grace. I just stepped aside, opened up a space. Now the blessings arrive every day, since I made room for grace. I want to live without making demands, asking for help when I need it, being happy just doing the best that I can. When I stumble, I won't be defeated. Since I made room for grace, I just stepped aside, opened up a space. Now the blessings arrive every day, since I made room for grace. I had insisted on all that I wanted, I see I'd have sold myself short. But when I stopped resisting, I got what I needed and so much more. Since I made room for grace, I just stepped aside, opened up a space. Now the blessings arrive, since I made room for grace. I just stepped aside, opened up a space. Now the blessings arrive every day, since I made room for grace. Since I made room for grace.
Caught up in the chords here. Thank you, Lucinda. I love that song, and particularly because I had an aunt that whose name was Grace, and she and I were very, very close. And unfortunately, while I was in seminary, she passed away on September 17th, 2004. And the daily word for that day was grace. So, many of you were present here a few weeks before Christmas when we had the church open again for a while. And we had a 12 Powers candle lighting ceremony. As each candle was lighted, a brief statement about that power was read, and we also gave a brief introduction to the 12 powers. Each candle was a different color, and we'll say more about that. We said in the new year we may offer you a more in-depth presentation of their significance and importance in our life. So this is it. We're going to do it today. I actually looked back to see when was the last time we presented Sunday services based on the 12 powers, and was shocked to realize that it was 2015. That year I presented one spiritual power each month and spoke at length about it. But today I'm going to give you an expanded overview of the 12 powers. And I know for some of you this may be the first time that you're hearing it, and for others of you who are seasoned unitics, as we call ourselves sometimes, this will hopefully be a good refresher. Much of what we do today will be on the screen, so you can follow along with what I will be telling you. So we'll put up the first slide that says our 12 powers, an expanded overview. And on the next slide, we learn that we remember that we always say in our, one of the things that we say in the opening of the service, there is only one power and one presence in the universe and in my life, God the good, omnipotent. Technically, we say omnipotent, but it really should be omnipotence. Because when we say omnipotent, we're saying that God has power. Whereas if we say omnipotence, that means God is power. Just a little clarification there, nothing that we need to be overly concerned about. So on the next slide, we see that our 12 powers are really attributes of the one power, which is also part of our own divine nature. We give each of these powers specific names appropriate to the various ways in which we express it in various life situations. On the next slide, we see that the 12 powers are the 12 components of God's image and likeness, the 12 disciples of our Christ mind, fundamental aspects of our divine nature, and they are not yet fully developed or expressed in us. That's part of our continued spiritual journey. On the next slide, we see a quote by Charles Fillmore, who said, "The 12 faculties exist spiritually as realities in our mind and in God mind, symbolically as the 12 disciples of Jesus Christ and the 12 centers of energy within the physical body of every individual." The next slide says, each of the 12 powers, along with their respective disciple or apostle, was revealed to Charles Fillmore, co-founder of Unity, during a meditative state. Now this next slide, which I can hardly see in my notes here, but you can probably see it a little bit better up there. It actually has different colors on it, and it would take a fair amount of time to study it, but it shows where each of the 12 powers is located within our physical bodies. And so we will be talking about each one of those as we move along. So our very first slide of the first of our 12 powers is faith. So as you look at that slide, you'll notice that the word faith is in dark blue. As I mentioned, each one of the powers is represented by a different color. faith is also represented by the Apostle Peter, and its location in the body is the pineal gland. And of course, from Hebrews 11:1, we read, now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things unseen. And so a good description of faith is our ability to perceive the freedom of good despite evidence to the contrary. The faculty of positive expectation and definite assurance that the power, presence, and promise of God are real here and now. And so for each of the 12 powers, we also have an affirmation, and our affirmation says, I have the faith that with God all things are possible. So let's say that together. I have faith that with God all things are possible. So then we move on to our next spiritual power, which is strength. And you'll notice that the word strength is written in light green, represented by the Apostle Andrew, and the location is in the small of the back. Now I have a special liking for this one, because I may have told you that when I was a congregant at Unity Church of Dallas, we had a 2-year discipleship program, and each of us drew a name of one of the disciples. There were 12 of us, obviously, and each one of us drew the name of a disciple, and that's the one we would represent for that 2-year period. And I drew the name of Andrew. So that's always been, and I remember asking my minister at the time, David, if I drew strength, does that mean I need strength or I have strength? And he said, both. And isn't that true for all of us? So the scripture verse for that is, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And when we say Christ, remember that we're talking about the Christ presence within us. And the definition, strength is the facility of steadfastness, dependability, stability, and the capacity for endurance. It is more than physical endowment. It is a degree of spiritual awareness. It is not force. It is spiritual courage and confidence. Non-resistance is the highest expression of strength. And let's say our affirmation together for strength. I am an expression of the strength and vitality of God. So let's move on to the next slide, which is often just called wisdom, but sometimes people call it judgment and discernment too. And you'll notice that the color is yellow. The apostle is James, the son of Zebedee, and wisdom is located in the solar plexus. You know, when you get a gut feeling, that's where that comes from. So, and from Proverbs chapter 2, verse 10, we see, for wisdom shall enter thy heart, and knowledge shall be pleasant unto thy soul. So a good definition of wisdom or judgment is the facility by which we appraise, evaluate, and discern in order to make correct decisions. It is our ability to maintain enlightened objectivity about our life and our world. So let's say our affirmation together for wisdom. The power of wisdom within guides all my choices. I follow the wisdom of my heart. So our next slide is love. And you'll notice that the color of love is pink. And the apostle is John. And it is often said that John was the beloved disciple. So the location of love is the nerve center just behind the heart. So oftentimes when we go into meditation, we say go into that heart space where you feel the presence of God. And from 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 13, it says, and now faith, hope, and love abide, these three, and the greatest of these is love. The definition that we have for love is the attracting, harmonizing, unifying faculty of the mind. It is the constructive building force of spirit. Spiritual love is the total, unconditional acceptance of everyone and everything. Love is patient, kind, humble, courteous, unselfish, good-tempered, guileless, and sincere. And don't we wish we were all that way all the time? Let's say our affirmation together. I look beyond appearances and know that God's love expresses through every person. That's a tough one, isn't it? It's a tough one because there are people for whom it's really hard sometimes to be able to recognize the Spirit of God within them. Okay, so our next slide, our next power, is the power of power, or dominion, or mastery, represented by the Apostle Philip. And you'll notice that its color is purple. From Ephesians chapter 3, verse 20, it says, the power at work within us is able to accomplish abundantly more than we can ask or imagine. A good definition of power is the faculty that enables us to have authority over our own emotions, inspirations, and thoughts. Our greatest creative power is generated by our realization of the power of God within us. Our spoken words are vehicles through which this power is manifested. So let's say our affirmation for power together. My positive feelings and words bring my good to me now. So then we move on to the power of imagination. And you'll see that the color for imagination is light blue, and the apostle is Bartholomew, sometimes Nathaniel, sometimes called Nathaniel. We can talk about that sometime later too. And the location is that third eye, the root of the optic nerve. Have you ever heard about the third eye that really has that ability to imagine and to see beyond what is? So from Romans chapter 8, verse 20, we see, but if we hope for what we do not see, with perseverance, we wait eagerly for it. A good definition of imagination is the faculty of conceiving and picturing. It's the formative power of mind that shapes thoughts into mental images. The highest use of imagination is to shape thought into images that most fully reflect the nature of the original divine idea. And our affirmation, I envision myself creating that which blesses others. Isn't that a good thought, a good way of using our imagination? Our next power is the power of order and spiritual law. Now, we have to be careful when we say law, because whenever I think of law, I think of, judges and courts and all of those kinds of things. But it's not there. Oh, I got ahead of myself. I'm so sorry. Thank you for letting me know that. Okay, let's try that again. Um, we would go to understanding. And understanding then is the color is gold. And I'm sure it doesn't show up as gold on your screen, but I got it as close as I could. So, and it's interesting because understanding and will actually go together, because if we have understanding without will, it's useless, and will without understanding is chaotic. So, all right, so understanding is represented by the Apostle Thomas. Now, isn't that interesting, given that we call Thomas doubting Thomas, and yet he did come to understand. So that's why Thomas is understanding. And the location is the right forebrain. And we see from Proverbs 14:6, but knowledge is easy for one who understands. Understanding is the faculty by which we receive enlightenment and insight. It is our capacity to gain direct perception of truth. It is our faculty of spiritual intelligence. Understanding and will work hand in hand to one's spiritual development. And our affirmation for understanding: from the Christ mind within, I understand all that I need to know. And then we move on to the next slide, which is will. And again, you probably can't tell, it probably looks gray up there, but will is actually represented by the color silver. The apostle is Matthew, and the location is the left forebrain. So in John chapter 5, verse 30, we read, I seek not my own will, but the will of the Father who has sent me. And again, we have to be really careful as we think about that particular passage, because it appears that it is what Jesus is saying about himself, and yet the Father within us is that Christ presence that is within us all the time and is part of what we are as spiritual beings having a human experience. So the definition is will is the decision-making, directing, choosing faculty of the mind. It is our capacity to say yes and no to opportunities and options. It works in conjunction with the faculty of understanding. The highest expression of will is willingness, conscious consent to the will of God. And remember again, when we say the will of God, we're not talking about a God up there, out there, who's directing things. That will of God is that presence of God within us that leads us and guides us through all that is. So, let's say our affirmation together. I open myself to understanding and carrying out God's will. So now we come to order and spiritual law. Okay, and as I was mentioning before, when I think of law, I always think of, judges and courts and rules and all of that sort of thing. And that's not what that law refers to. We're talking about spiritual law, just as it's a law that if I have a pen in my hand and I open my hand, it will fall to the ground. That's the law of gravity. Okay, so we have spiritual laws too, that especially our third unity principle says so well, that everything in the manifest world comes about through our thoughts and feelings. So anyway, order and spiritual law are dark green, and the apostle is James, the son of Alphaeus. The location is the ganglion nerve center behind the navel. From Romans chapter 8, verse 28, we know that all things work together for good for those who love God. Order is the faculty by which we establish harmony, balance, right adjustment, right sequence of actions, it should say, of actions in our lives. Order is the one underlying law of manifestation, and we each must participate consciously in the process which enables growth without struggle. And our affirmation, we'll say together, God's order is now established in mind, body, and circumstances. So then we move on to zeal, which is orange. The apostle is Simon, and the location is the medulla in the back of the neck. We read in Galatians about zeal, chapter 4, verse 18, but it is good to be zealous in good things always, and not only when I am present with you. And again, that's a quote supposedly from, that's actually a quote from Paul, and he's saying for us to be zealous about what we're doing even when we don't have someone leading us and guiding us like himself. So our affirmation, we say together, joyously I move through this day as an expression of God's love. Then we come to the power of elimination or renunciation, which is russet. It's represented by the Apostle Thaddeus, and the location is the lower spine in the abdominal region. I want to read the definition of this before I read the scripture verse. Renunciation is the faculty by which we release false beliefs and accomplish a mental cleansing. It enables us to surrender to our inner spirit, eliminate that which is not for our highest good, so that transformation and purification of consciousness can take place. I like that definition. And from Isaiah chapter 43, verses 18 and 19, it says, "Do not remember the former things or consider the things of old. I am about to do a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it?" So it's about letting go. And our affirmation, I let go and let God pour blessings of love and peace into my heart. And our final power is life. And Penny represents that so well this morning because, I mean, look at that beautiful red dress. And doesn't red remind you of life? First of all, because blood is red, so it's our lifeblood. But life is represented, interestingly, by the Apostle Judas. And the reason for that, I believe, is that because through Jesus, then through Judas, the life of Jesus was made manifest to us. And there are biblical scholars who believe that it is very possible that Judas really did not betray Jesus. So, anyway, the location is our creative center. From Acts, verse 2, chapter 28, we say, "You have made known to me the ways of life. You will make me full of gladness with your presence." The definition of life is the faculty of movement, vitality, wholeness and creativity. It is the expression of the pure, essential life of God within us. When directed from sense consciousness, it degenerates into seeking to satisfy the senses. When wisdom, understanding, and judgment direct it, it is directed in ways that enhance one's spiritual life. In our affirmation, I am an expression of the life of God flowing in and through me. So there you have it. Now, maybe you're like me. Maybe you're a little bit skeptical and say, well, some of that just seems kind of a little contrived. And it doesn't, does each one have a color? Or does each one really represent a particular place within our bodies and so forth? And it's okay to be skeptical about any of those things or any of the things that we talk about. And yet, having these as a background and a basis allows us to recognize that we do have powers within us of life, of strength, of imagination, of faith and strength, and all of the powers that we talked about that allow us to live from a spiritual place. So you may not buy the whole thing hook, line, and sinker, but it may be meaningful to you in some important way to apply in your life. So we do have a couple of more slides that just have some pictures on them. And the first one shows a picture of Peter and Andrew. And of course, we have no idea that that's how they looked, but those are artists' renderings of those two apostles. On the next screen, we see Matthew, Philip, and Thaddeus. And finally, on the last of the pictures, we see Judas Iscariot. And we see him as sort of a sneaky character in that picture. Again, remember that these are all artists' renderings, and unfortunately, we really don't have any real pictures of those people, or even Jesus for that matter. Okay, and on the next slide, what I have done is I have created a matrix that has all of the powers, who they represent, the color, and let me see. I can't see this on my notes well enough. Yeah, okay. I thought that there was the month on there too. So the 1, 2, 3, 4 columns, or fifth column is the month, and then a brief description. So if anybody wants to have that for any reason, I will print it out and give you a copy of it on one sheet. And then our final slide is a poem that I wrote several years ago, more years than I care to think about how long ago I wrote this, but it is about the 12 powers. And it goes like this. 12 powers shape my life. I choose to live my life with zeal and every moment faith to feel, so strength can be what I'm about through renunciation of all doubt. I have the power to succeed and all the wisdom that I need to let order out of chaos reign. Through understanding on a deeper plane, my imagination lights a million fires. It gives my will gives shape to these desires so that life is good, fulfilled, and free, and love is who I will always be. So that's pretty much it for the 12 powers. And as I mentioned, in the past, what we've done is taken one each month and really talked about it at length so we can really have a much better idea of how that power works in our life. So at some point, we might do that again too. So Anyway, all right, let us, it is kind of late, so I think I am going to do our Buddhist mantra for our meditation. Let us let us read this together as our meditation today, but let's settle in and breathe and turn within as we say this Buddhist mantra together. As I grow older, may I be kind to myself. As I grow older, may I accept joy and sorrow. As I grow older, may I be happy and at peace. As we grow older, may we be wise and kind to ourselves. As we grow older, may we accept joy and sorrow. As we grow older, may we be happy and at peace. As all beings grow older, may they be kind to each other. As all beings grow older, may they accept joy and sorrow. As all beings grow older, may they be happy and at peace. And so it is.
Thank you so much, Margo. This is the time in our service when we have an opportunity to give back the work of Spirit through our offerings and our tithes. We give in love and gratitude for our own prosperity in its many forms, which comes to us through God, our instant, constant, and abundant source. Will the ushers please come forward? I invite you to hold your offerings in your hand as we say our offertory blessing together. Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all of the good I am and have, all of the good I give and receive, and I am grateful.
Will the ushers please come forward again so we may bless these offerings?
Don't forget, Tuesday is lunch at
Not this Tuesday.
Summer Palace on Hewitt Drive, 11:30. Be there or be
It's the
square.
second,
Tuesday.
Margo, this
sorry?
isn't the second Tuesday, I don't think.
I can't hear you.
The second, please.
Oh, it's the second Tuesday. Oh, so this is not this Tuesday.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, shall we circle up? Let's just take a moment to look around the circle at all of these beautiful faces, each one an expression of God's divine presence. Oh, wonderful understanding. All right, let us say together now our prosperity affirmation. We affirm the continued growth and prosperity of Unity Spiritual Center of Waco, and we are grateful. In our prayer for protection, the light of God surrounds us. I am the light of God. The love of God enfolds us. I am the love of God. The power of God protects us. I am the power of God. The presence of God watches over us. I am the presence of God. Wherever I am, God is, and all is well. So it is. And let the church say amen. Amen.